Great news to share with you about the $5,000 stimulus checks. Looks like Social Security recipients will get those $5,000 stimulus checks or the Doge Dividend checks. So this is coming from the CEO Fishback.
The good news is that Social Security recipients, of course, will be receiving the check for one simple reason. They worked for years. They paid into the system, Stephen. They saw their tax dollars not be used wisely. They should be at the absolute front of the line. But also, folks from the VA, if you're receiving veterans benefits as well,
I'm going to play that full video clip as that is from an interview a couple days ago with Steve Ram, who has a great channel on Social Security as well. So looks like officially Social Security recipients are on the list of those who qualify for Social Security checks. They paid into it for years. Why not? They should get that check. But there's also some other really important details you need to know about when it comes to the $5,000 stimulus check. I'm going to play that full video clip and give you some other important updates as well. Before I dive into the main content, if you appreciate these stimulus updates, then hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stimulus updates. So up to $5,000, who wouldn't qualify for the Doge stimulus checks being pushed by Trump and Musk? Well, we have good news that, as I just shared with you a quick clip, looks like Social Security recipients are eligible to receive those $5,000 checks. This is great news as there has been a lot of questions around it. Supposedly it was just taxpayers, people who made, $40,000 or more, but it looks like Social Security recipients, since you've paid your entire life into the system, why not get that $5,000 check as well? So I'm gonna play that clip. We're gonna go over the latest number here. Looks like $115 billion and the checks are up to $714. More on that in a moment, but let's take a listen to Steve Ram interviewing CEO Fishback.
But I'd like to ask the big question I get from a lot of people here on my channel is Social Security. Are they going to be getting the check? Who qualifies for checks? Because a lot of them are saying, I pay taxes my whole life and now I'm not paying into taxes. Am I going to get a check or am I going to get left behind? What's the deal with that?
The good news is that in the legislation that we have drafted, Social Security recipients, of course, will be receiving the check for one simple reason. They worked for years. They paid into the system, Stephen. They saw their tax dollars not be used wisely. They should be at the absolute front of the line versus someone who might have just started. But in this case, everyone's on the same page. Everyone gets the same amount. And that includes not only Social Security recipients, but also folks from the VA. If you're receiving veterans benefits as well, that's how our draft legislation, as we've written it, would go out. If you're paying federal income tax, which is say you're filing a federal income tax return, you are receiving Social Security benefits, or you are a veteran who has served this country and is now receiving VA benefits, you would receive the Doge dividend check. That's what we have brought to Congress. That's the version that we are lobbying for. Of course, there's always going to be some debate back and forth, but we are standing firm on that. Republican or Democrat, you got to see that folks who have worked hard their entire life, paid into Social Security, paid taxes, they deserve the Doge dividend just as much as anybody else.
Wow, that is awesome. And that is the first time I've heard that. I've heard a lot of people
confirming it to you that the bill that we have drafted here at Azoria for the Doge dividend includes Social Security recipients. And I got to tell you, Stephen, it's the number one question we've gotten. And we never intended to exclude them. It was a 4-page draft of a proposal that went unbelievably viral. But when we actually sat down and rolled up our sleeves to write the bill, the line item that would end up getting in a reconciliation package, we wanted to be crystal clear. If you're receiving Social Security benefits, you will, under the proposed bill, receive a Doge dividend check. Now it's up for our folks and our friends in Congress on the left and the right to get that passed. Of course, it seems like President Trump is ready to sign it into law when that package comes to his desk. But that's where we are right now. And my team just walked out. 2 of them just walked out to meet with the U.S. Senator over on the Hill and get as much support. We are taking no one for granted. We've asked to meet with Republicans and Democrats. We've had over 30 meetings with House and Senate members since this was proposed. And so we don't just want to propose the idea. We want to be part of the solution and executing on it and getting it over the line.
What are the requirements for getting this? Because I've seen this circulating around social media, and I'm not really sure where it originated from, but there's this rumor going around that you have to bring in $40,000 a year annual income to qualify for the check. Is that false, or is that true?
No, what we've very simply said, and for your audience, I would just go to my Doge Dividend, mydogedividend.com, and read our 4-page proposal that is informing the legislation, and that is really taken off this entire viral moment, it seems, for an economic policy proposal. What it very simply says is, if you file a federal income tax return, you pay federal income tax, which is to say that you worked, that you would receive, that household, that individual in that household would receive a Doge dividend check. Part of the reason, Stephen, we talked about in this proposal, the fourth key benefit we talked about was incentivizing labor force participation. Here's an unbelievable statistic. There are 7 million working age men in this country who are not working. 7 million working age men who are not working. 40% of them are taking opioid painkillers every single day. There's a direct link with the hollowing out of places like Appalachia and the South, the manufacturing hubs of our great country, and opioid addiction, deaths of despair, and of course, folks being pushed on the sidelines and not being able to work. And so what better way to incentivize, on one hand, what the president is doing to close the southern border, to prevent the flow of new fentanyl and new drugs into the country, while at the same time building on the president's bold proposals of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, as yet another incentive, Stephen, of a Doge dividend goes to those who work and pay federal income tax. Think about it. If you're a guy right now who's working age, who's not working, and you know there's a prospect of a Doge dividend check with your name on it next summer, so long as you get a job, get back into that labor force. And when President Trump has said that overtime is going to be all yours, those tips are going to be all yours as well. These are powerful incentives to get the millions of Americans off the sidelines. Everyone talks about the unemployment rate is so low, but you know this, Stephen, the unemployment rate is calculated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, part of the federal government. It only counts you as unemployed if you've been looking for work in the past 4 weeks. So if you gave up in August of 24, of 23, of 2020, if you gave up looking for work because the conditions weren't there, guess what? Now you are not technically unemployed. And so what we want to do is we want to give another incentive with President Trump to bring hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people off the sidelines saying, wait, hold on. Trump's saying, I get to keep all my tips, I get to keep all my overtime, and I can get a Doge dividend check as well. That is a winning formula. As the economists say, show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome. The incentive is go to work, keep more money, get a Doge check. The outcome is millions of Americans coming off the sidelines, looking for work, contributing to their community. And by the way, as the president has said, as a lot of the illegal migrants leave, those jobs are going to need to be filled. And so now there's an opportunity for Americans to keep more of their money, to get a Doge check, to fill those jobs, and to supercharge the economy.
Wow. So, you get back into the workforce and you get a Doge signing bonus right off the bat as well.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought of it. I'm gonna make a note of that right now. It's the Doge signing bonus, right? Think about it. If someone is not, it's the same reason why you had these big companies say, oh, we can't find work, we need a signing bonus. And that did bring some people off the sidelines, right? The same thing is the case here. Effectively, it's a signing bonus, not when you start, but when Doge is done, but it's fully contingent on you having worked in that moment and having paid federal income tax.
And that actually makes a good segue to my next question, which is this going to be a one-time thing right now to get things rolling, get the ball rolling, or is this potentially something that could be continuing on, or and when will these be essentially going out here? I've been watching the Doge tracker as it says that Elon's got about 400 something days. This is going to be something that is going to be applied in the bill right now to go out essentially next year, right?
Correct. And if you go to doge.gov, by the way, you can see that Elon and company, they've saved over $105 billion. What does that mean? That's $650 per taxpayer. So yes, when we defund Iraqi Sesame Street, when we lay off workers, bureaucrats who are not minding their own business and trying to breathe down the workers' necks and the businesses' necks, then guess what? We have savings. A portion of that savings ought to go back to hardworking Americans. And so these are real numbers. And so any out-of-touch politician, I don't care their political party, Stephen, if they're saying the Doge savings aren't real, it's $105 billion right now on Doge.gov, and that is $650. How is that calculated on 160 million individual federal taxpayers? This is real money. Ask your audience, if I can ask them, whether you're retired and you served this country in the military, you built a business, you were a worker, a teacher, a bus driver, whatever you did to move your family forward, could you use $650 right now? And so the thing, Stephen, is that we think about, oh, well, if it only works if we hit 2 trillion. No, the way we've written the bill is it's 20% of whatever is saved. So if it's 1 trillion, then it's 1,200, it's 2,500. If it's as low as 500 billion, 20% there would be $1,250. Every American could use a check for that right now, in large part, and you've covered this extensively talking about debt, is people took on a lot of debt over the last 4 years, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. They had to take on debt, credit card debt, because of the Biden-Harris inflation. And so we know inflation was 25-30% over those 4 years. Wherever you are politically, it's just a fact. And so if you had to pay more at the grocery store and charge more on your credit card and charge more for your auto and all of that stuff, you got roped into taking on more debt, not because you wanted a new TV, not because you wanted to pay more, but because the government and its reckless, stupid policies made you pay more. That's not your fault. And that's why the Doge dividend is so important. When we ask people in polls, Stephen, where the money would go, 7 out of 10, what do they say? They would use it to pay down debt. Remember, credit card debt interest rates are 15-20%. The federal government's borrowing at 4%. There's a very big difference between those two. And so the national debt isn't the only debt that's gone up. It's household debt that's skyrocketed. And the Doge dividend is one way for hardworking households to be able to reshore their finances. That's not inflationary. It can't be inflationary to use money to pay down debt. Now, if you use money to buy crab legs and to go out and do all that fun stuff, but we're in a very different macroeconomic environment right now. Think about it. When COVID happened, when we sent out the first couple stimulus checks, what was going on? Massive labor shortage, lockdowns, schools were closed, businesses were closed, international trade was closed. The Fed was printing $100 billion a month and interest rates were at 0. And we had $6 trillion of spending from Congress. That was the environment then. So, of course, any incremental stimulus was going to fuel inflation. And it wasn't just the checks. Let's be honest. It wasn't just the stimulus checks that caused inflation. It might have had something to do. The stimulus checks, by the way, were about $800 billion of the total spending during COVID. There was $6 trillion of other spending. So maybe, just maybe, it wasn't the $800 billion, it was the $6 trillion. Maybe, just maybe, it had something to do with the fact that the Federal Reserve was artificially keeping rates at 0% and was printing $100 billion every 30 days. So I have a lot of, I've studied this very closely as a macro investor, spent past 10 years working at 2 hedge funds as a macro trader. Clearly, the Biden-Harris administration contributed to the inflation, but let's not all put it on some checks. And I think, and at the same point now, the backdrop is different. There's no lockdown. There's no labor shortage. The Fed has rates at 4%. The Fed is not adding $100 billion to its balance sheet. It's taking off $50 billion from its balance sheet every month. We have deregulation. We're reining in federal spending. We have drill, baby, drill. Gas prices are at the lowest level in 4 years right now. So you have to look at the context in which a check is going out. And the last point I'll make, Stephen, because your viewers know this well, is the idea of sending folks a refund every year is not new. We do it, again, every year. Last year, we sent out 100 million refund checks on average of $3,100. Did that cause inflation? Has that caused, is there just a spike in inflation every time the tax refund checks go out? Of course not. And so let's not use the inflation boogeyman as a tool to deny hardworking retirees or workers what they are due, which is a refund directly from the money that government is saving with Doge.
What are your thoughts there? I think Steve Ram did a great job of asking a lot of questions about Social Security, low income, fixed income, as his channel, great channel, talks a lot about Social Security updates. If you haven't already, check out his channel. Him and I have actually spoken a bit in the past. So let's talk about this really quick. Looks like the number has gone up since I last shared this. $115 billion saved so far. They're at 5.75%. You can see, I'm not going to go over all the numbers here, but looks like a check of $714 per taxpayer would be going out now. Now, I think a really important thing that they should do is give a check right now. If they've saved $714 worth of money per taxpayer, give that check right now. Get public trust, get the public behind you, because half of the American people are not for Doge and the cuts made to Social Security and all of that. So you got to gain public trust. Send this $714 check right now, and then whatever saved up in, let's say, 4 months, 6 months, whenever, maybe send another check. Maybe do it quarterly, every 6 months, annually. Why not? They need to gain the public trust, but it is a good thing. This number is going up. Let me know your thoughts on that, and that is all the news that I have for today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Belle's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Belle's tip of the day, and what I want to tell you is always stay happy. Always be glad for your family, because your family is the ones who made you and made you. So everybody, hope you have a good July 4th. Bye!
Now?
Representative Larson went full purple, veins popping out of his neck and head in Congress. You're going to want to see that video right over there. Also, the White House has responded to Social Security, Trump, Doge, Elon Musk. What does Trump have to say about Social Security with everything going on now? You're not going to want to miss that video over there. So I'll see you in that video. Take care. Be safe. Thank you for watching.